It's an immense pleasure to welcome you all here at this year's Garden Marathon. And the topic of the garden, and notably the relation actually between the garden, art and memory, has been an interest of mine ever since I met as a student Dan Graham for the first time. And I will never forget, we were in New York and had a whole afternoon of a conversation. And that was really the trigger, I must say, for everything. The second step was actually from 98 to 2000. We organized with Laurence Bosset and Caroline Christoph Bagakiev a whole series of 3 years program, and it's wonderful Caroline is here, because it really is a continuation of this dialogue about garden, the city, and memory. And it happened in this extraordinary place, the Villa Medici in Rome. The Villa Medici was built between 1564 and 1566 in what was then the outskirts of the city of Rome. And obviously today, it's in the heart of the city. And what's so extraordinary about this garden is there are so many secret parts, as there are in the villa many secret rooms. And the idea was really to explore an exhibition, an evolutive exhibition over 3 years in this Hortus Conclusus, which was and is the Villa Medici. And that leads us immediately to now, because when Julia and I started to talk with our teams to Peter Zumthor, inviting him to do the 2011 Serpentine Pavilion, his very first intuition was a Hortus Conclusus. In our very first conversation, when Julia and I went to his studio near Chur, in the Swiss mountains, Peter told us, "Enclosed gardens fascinate me. A forerunner of this fascination is my love of the fenced vegetable gardens on farms in the Alps, where farmers often planted flowers as well. There's something else that strikes me in this image of a garden fenced off within the larger landscape around it. Something small has found sanctuary within something big." This whole idea of the garden within the garden, almost like a Russian matryoshka, has also got a lot to do with the marathon, because a marathon always hides another marathon. And actually within the many presentations, we're going to have more than 60 speakers and performers over the next 2 days. We're also going to have panels within the marathon. There will be the panel by John Brockman, Edge. We are very grateful to Edge and to John Brockman for this third collaboration on the marathon. It will be a panel which is about garden of science, and will be very much a panel within the panel, and that will happen tomorrow at 11 o'clock. There is a change in schedule, so I wanted you to be aware that the John Brockman Edge panel is tomorrow at 11 and not at 2, and we hope to see you all there. There is the panel of Alice Rawthorne, who will discuss the garden of design, and the panel of David Rowan from Wired, who actually will discuss the gardens of technology. And all of that will actually lead us to many kinds of different gardens, the outside gardens, inside garden. Alexander Kluge told us there are gardens inside us. He says, one would say, my brain is like a freshly raked garden, or whenever you feel at one with yourself, or I went for a walk in the gardens of my imagination. So we will have many different types of gardens, and all of this has obviously to do also with bigger gardens, micro gardens and macro gardens. Gilles Clément, with whom we worked actually in Rome very intensely, told us about the idea of the planetary gardens. He talked about this idea that we should care for gardens in their entirety, and we actually should somehow think about a planetary garden in terms of the whole or holistic biodiversity. When we spoke to, and there were hundreds of conversations preparing the marathon with all the participants, there were actually a few gardens which popped up more regularly than others. Many of our speakers talked about secret gardens, talked about memory gardens, talked about information garden, and Edouard Glissant, to whom I would like to dedicate this introduction, who unfortunately passed away and cannot be with us, he said, if you address the garden, it should be about the polyphonic garden. And I think this whole message of Edouard of a polyphonic garden is very much with us. Interestingly enough, the garden which was mentioned most frequently was the dream garden. This idea of the dream garden was mentioned by many, many speakers. And actually, I have a quote here. Ronnie Horn once told me, if the garden is like a dream, then I have many gardens. And that obviously leads us to Ellen Sixu, who in her recent book, Philippines, talks a lot about dream gardens. All in all, I have gathered more than 1,200 notions of gardens since this research started. And I will not read here the entire list because it would take too long. I'm just going to read you the beginning. A garden, abandoned garden, ABC garden, abstract garden, active garden, actor network garden, actual garden, ad hoc garden, additive garden, agglomeration garden, agora garden, agricultural garden, airport garden, and so on. Actually, there was one garden missing, and we're adding it today, which is the marathon garden. So thanks you very much for coming. Thanks a lot.